Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Jawah al-Quran, the Jewels of the Quran. We have reached Surah Yasin, of which Imam Ghazali selected 25 verses as jewels. In the last session, we have read and commented about on part of these 25 verses. Precisely verses 33 to 44. Of course, we have read a little bit more, but this is really the part of the what Imam Ghazali selected. And there was no time to read the verses 71 to 83, the second selection, if you will. But before we move into the rest of these 25 verses, let's go back to some of the ideas and maybe comment a little bit more. For example, verse 41, وآية لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون. This is a reference to the Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam's ark, which he was ordered to build. He was guided also to build this ship. Mashhun, of course, the offspring of the believers, and they were not many. A few indeed believed in Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, despite the very long period that he spent spent amongst his people, calling them to the straight path, to believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 1,000 years, solar years, minus 50 lunar years, and that's not 950 as many people would assume. That's 951 and 6 months approximately. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'la wa alam. This is a reference to the story, of course, of the flood, and it's important to we try to remind the listeners that for us as Muslims, we believe, of course, that the Qur'an is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it has the upper hand when we have similar stories in the Old Testament. For example, the first 5 books would be called the Torah, and we do believe that previous revelation suffered from the vagaries of transmission. So if we have a similar story, a shared story with differences in details, then the Quranic story is the right story. There was a flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and some Western scholars assume that the author of the Bible took from the got some ideas about the flood from the Epic of Gilgamesh, and they assume that that's their approach, that the author of the Quran took from the Old Testament. And really, this is poor thinking. Simply, there was a flood. Yes, Revelation covered this story, and there were. It's not necessarily that there was only one flood. Today, there are high mountains with sea sea creatures, shells that one can find in the layers of the earth. But as I said again, high mountains and far away from the sea, which means that these areas were covered with water at one point in the history of the earth. Those who were on the ark, of course, they were saved. And what would they talk about? They would talk about the flood, and the story would, of course, be passed down through the ages. And as we know, people are creative, and they might create different narratives about something which did take place. So the offspring of those with who were with Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, including, except for that son of Sayyidina alayhi salam, who insisted on resorting to a mountain which would save him from the flood. It's a very sad story. Your father is a prophet, and you reject your father, reject faith, and you resort to the material realm, and that would not save you. And the very last scene, if you will, between Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam and his son, the waves came in between, and his son drowned in the water, which would also mean that Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam did not see his son. Yes, he drowned, but maybe the very last few seconds he did not see him, gasping for air, trying to survive the waves, the flood. But of course, it's a divine decree, and he drowned. And it is followed also by this verse with the reference to other vessels, other vehicles, other modes of transportation. وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. And you can see some, subhanallah, until today, the largest, the shipping industry using the oceans and the seas is still very much needed, and it's very active. Massive ships, and sometimes they cannot face the massive waves, and they drown from time to time. Now we continue with verse 71, and we will go back to the verses in between. So ending with 44, going to 71. This is Imam Ghazali's selection. We'll go back because we need to go back to that which is in between at one point, inshallah. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون. This is now another verse about about creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for them cattle. Do they, meaning the idolaters, do they not see that among our handwork we have created for them cattle of which they then become owners? We have subjected cattle to them so that they ride some of them and eat of others, meaning the flesh. They derive other benefits from them and also obtain drink from them. This is a reference to milk, because it is prohibited for us to drink blood, for example. If one watches documentaries on programs like National Geographic, would find that the Maasai in Africa um, would make a cut and literally drink blood and seal the cut, the wound. Now, for us, we cannot do that. And the milk, of course, it means also dairy products. I'm mentioning the milk because of the all these theories uh, about not drinking milk or not really consuming dairy, and even those who became not only vegetarians but they became vegan. Nothing that comes from animals, sometimes because they believe in animal rights and what have you. Uh, what would you do if you were in the shoes of the government of Namibia, and there is starvation? People are hungry. And they decided to, kill a number of animals, wildlife animals, because to then distribute the meat to the hungry people. Yes, there's a big difference in people who can they can afford that they have a choice. They can they know they have something to eat, and they might not eat dairy, or when they might not eat meat or eggs or what have you, or fish, uh, and stick to a vegan, sometimes even today even a raw diet. And there are people who do not have this luxury, and despite all that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for them, they choose other gods. I mean, they create their own gods. They derive other benefits from them and obtain drink from them. They will not then, or will they not then, be grateful? No, they were not grateful. They have taken apart from God gods that they might be helped by these gods, by these idols. Uh, these gods, these idols, are not able to help them, though they be hosts made ready for them. So let not that which they say grieve you. Assuredly, grieve you. Um, addressing Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فلا يحزنك قولهم. So, assuredly we know that which they conceal and that which they disclose. Does not man consider that surely we have created him from a sperm drop? Man, I think when the Quran speaks about the nutfa, of course, it could be a reference to the sperm drop, it could be to the zygote. But the issue here is فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. Then, lo, he becomes an open disputer. And not only an open disputer, he sets for us a similitude and forgets the fact of his creation. He argues, who will quicken the bones when they are decayed? So let's spend a minute or so on the human being, despite his origins, despite all the favors, despite all the weaknesses, despite he becomes an open disputer. But the Arabic, of course, خصيم, خصم, the khasm is an opponent. The khasm is from, if you think about khusuma, it's not only it's not only a dispute, antagonism, animosity. All these are included in khasm. Now think about, let's go back now to verse 65. Now, فإذا خصيم بين is verse 77. So let's go back to verse 65 and see what's going on there. Verse 65. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. On this day, the day of judgment, we will seal their mouths, their hands will speak to us, and their feet will testify to what they used to commit. So that's their fate. Their mouths will be sealed. They have used their mouth, their tongues, really, as in verse 77, فَإِذَا خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ, using the one's tongue, using one's ability to communicate, to become an adversary, khasm. And this will be robbed from him on the day of judgment. It's a punishment. They cannot speak. And in terms of witnessing, every part of them will bear witness to what they have committed in this life. People forget that when they were created, it's not. If you think about these billions of neurons and cells and the human genome, the 4 letters, there is a certain mathematical equation, if you will. It is, your genome is there. It is by design. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you. And this body will, of course, in a way that will be fit to an everlasting life, will be created again. You will be resurrected, and the soul will be teamed with one's body. But again, as I said, it's going to be, inshallah, fit for an everlasting life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will recreate, will revive, will resurrect the human being. Say, O Prophet, قل, O Prophet, inserted, of course, and they will be revived by the one, or by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who produced them the first time. For He has perfect knowledge of every created being. وَبِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٍ. Of course, nothing by chance. And it's a silly idea to think that dead matter, the earth, can have, can come up with such a wonderful design of the human being, with all these billions of parts. في أحسن تقويم, subhanallah, perfect creation. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who gives you fire from green trees, and behold, you kindle fire from them. not only this, of course, you have green, you have you know evergreens. You cut them down. Of course, today we learned how to do that in a sustainable way. Uh, if you cut a tree, you plant new trees in place of the trees that are cut. And sometimes there are certain trees that you're not supposed to. Say, for example, the one could be fascinated. Small seeds, very small seeds. You have vegetables. Very small seeds will ultimately be uh, will become trees with fruits, different colors, different aromas, different tastes, and the small seed could become a massive redwood tree, the uh, the tallest tree in the world, known tree really, is almost 116 meters, 115 and 0.92 meters, uh, and that's originally a small seed. It's an amazing story, fascinating story, subhanallah. And you people, sometimes we again the luxury of living in a place where you could have sustainable sources of energy versus people who still continue to use wood for fire. Um, uh, One should not blame them for doing that when they cannot afford anything else. In fact, they could be literally impoverished by the former colonial European powers. Can the one who created the heavens and the earth not easily resurrect these deniers, these people? Yes, Bala. Of course, it means yes, he can, subhanahu wa ta'ala. For he is the master creator, all knowing, omniscient, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if he wants something, all it takes, then he wills something to be, uh, and as simple as saying be and it is. And this is why scholars would say that the creation is between al kaf and nun, kun. Be in English will be like between the B and the E. So glory be to the one in whose hands is the authority over all things, and to whom alone you will all be returned. The surah of Yasin uh, has also something interesting. Where it says in كانت إلا صيحة واحدة. This is the notion of the sayha is mentioned in different places uh, in the Qur'an, and the notion of the sayha this is verse 29. إن كانت لصيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. It has been translated sometimes as a might, as a blast, sometimes as a cry, as a really this is a sound wave. And we talk about if you look it up and just simply try to find an answer for the question, can sound be deadly? And of course, if it's close to 200 decibel, then yes, it can be deadly. It can knock you out, and it can damage your organs. Subhanallah. People, in fact, if you are pretty close to right next to a sperm whale when it emits the echolocation sound, it's it could be damaging. You might not tolerate really that kind of sound. Subhanallah, it has been a punishment, and this will, of course, since it's a wave sound, there were wave sounds historically from a volcano in Indonesia, and it was heard and documented thousands of miles away, and it traveled around the globe. It was not at that distance. It was not deadly, but it could, for those who were very close to it, it could be damaging. People underestimate the power of sound. Subhanallah. At any rate, these are some of the ideas that one can come across when he or she reads this Surah Yasin. And in the next session, inshallah, we will read from Surah As-Saffat. Imam Ghazali chose 14 verses for as jewels. Until then, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.